What's going on, guys? So in front of you, you are looking at something very special and very unique, and I think most people probably will understand why when they take a closer look at it. This is pretty dang awesome, and it is very, very different than what a lot of people are used to when it comes to a lot of capacity in a very small footprint. Let's talk about it. Hang tight, I'll be right back. Okay, so the reason why this is so profoundly different is because they've been able to cram 320 amp hours of 12.8 volt battery into the smallest package I have seen so far. There are a lot of high capacity batteries that have gotten smaller. Totally get it. I've tested several of them. I actually have one that originally they said was 300 amp hours, but ended up being re-rated to 280 amp hours, and the format of it was actually quite a bit larger than this one. This one right here, again, is the smallest battery of its type that I have personally seen. Now, there may be others, but to get a battery that's 320 amp hours into this size is pretty dang crazy. Now, let's go over the specs, and I'll also take measurements, and I'll explain what you might need to do if you want to install this in the front of your RV, or I guess somewhere in your RV. So, when you look at the voltage, nominal voltage on it is 12.8 volts. Rated capacity is 320 amp hours. Rated energy is 4,096 watt hours. That's crazy for this size of battery. Charging voltage is your traditional lithium iron phosphate charging voltage of 14.4 volts. And then it's designed for a max continuous charge or discharge current at 200 amps and max continuous output power at 2,560 watts. And this is something that you can also monitor via Bluetooth through their app, which I've already downloaded. So I can specifically see that this battery now is at 54% capacity. It's in standby mode. It currently has 172.8 amp hours remaining. Voltage is 13.2. Currently there's no power going in or power going out. I can actually see if the cells are operating nominally, and I can look at the BMS on here as well, and it lets you know that it is running smoothly. And you can even see that it's balanced. This is a very strange way. Traditionally, it would show you some information here to kind of quantify some of that. Anyways, I can power the battery off as well from my smartphone. And if you want to power it on, basically you charge the battery to turn it back on. So this is really cool. And again, this is something that a lot of people are going to want to look at for their RV, mainly because it really eliminates for a lot of folks the need of purchasing multiple batteries to accomplish the same thing. So if you wanted to get the traditional 100 amp hour battery, which might take up slightly less space than this, you're gonna have to get 3+ batteries to actually meet the same amount of capacity that this battery is gonna provide you. And if we put this in terms of how many lead acid batteries you would have to replace, those traditional deep cycle marine batteries that come with your RV from the dealership oftentimes, those are usually gonna be either a 60, 80, or 100 amp hour battery. In many cases, it's a 60 amp hour battery. And believe it or not, to get the same performance out of a 60 amp hour 12 volt deep cycle battery that, again, a lot of RV manufacturers are putting in from the factory, it's the cheapest thing they can put in there essentially, you would have to get 11 of those to compete against one of these. Why? Because you only get about 50% voltage performance out of a traditional lead acid battery before the voltage starts dropping. And once that happens, you essentially are ruining the battery. So you don't get much life out of it if you allow the battery to drop too low for too long, too many times. With something like this, you get around like 99.9% discharge before voltage drops, which means you get twice the performance per amp hour out of a lithium battery versus a traditional lead acid battery. So again, if we were talking about how many batteries you would need to have from a lead acid perspective to compete with something like this, you'd have to have like 11 of them. That's kind of crazy, right? If you're looking at a traditional 100 amp hour lead acid battery, then you're talking about 7 of them, roughly, right? You have essentially half the performance out of a lead acid battery that you would get out of a lithium iron phosphate battery. So that is really dang cool to consider what you get in the package. Now, this is the battery box that we pulled out of the last travel trailer we had. This is a very typical battery box which can hold anywhere from a group 27 up to a group 30 size battery. I tried to cram this in there, and it actually fits in the bottom portion, but it's too tall to put the lid on it. However, if you go and buy one of these, which is the Camco double battery box, this actually holds this battery easily with plenty of room to spare on the side, and the lid can go back on it. So I'm going to go ahead and put this battery in this box so you can see what I'm talking about. Just going to pop the lid off. You can see it's just got the straps. This is a brand new box I bought just for this. I'm going to grab the LiTime battery. Drops in perfectly. Lid goes on perfectly, and we are good to go. And like I mentioned, plenty of space in here. It doesn't even make the box expand out. You got plenty of space on the ends in case you wanted to put something in. You really don't need to put like a shunt or something like that on here because you have the ability to monitor the state of charge through the application, which is really nice. But in some cases, when you buy batteries that don't have Bluetooth and you can't monitor them from your smartphone, you need to install something like a shunt so you can actually monitor the state of charge. Basically, it lets you know what the status of the battery is. That's the main thing. So this right here is very, very cool, and the fact that you can get this case right here, I think it's like 30 bucks. I can't remember how much I paid. I got it on Amazon. It's the same case that I got whenever we upgraded the battery in the Surveyor. And this is just a really good example of being able to get a tremendous amount of capacity from a legitimate brand in a very compact format that can give you the ability of possibly not needing to put multiple batteries in your RV to be able to do the things that you're trying to do. Now, you take something like this, if you already have an inverter in your RV and you're already powering 110 appliances off grid, this just gives you a tremendous amount of capacity. This just allows you to extend the amount of time that you're off grid. But if you don't currently have an inverter, which essentially inverts 12 volt power to 110 power for your outlets, this might give you the ability to do some really creative things. So when we talk about something like running an air conditioner off of this, because a lot of people would say, well, can we run an AC off of this? It really depends on the AC that you're running. But if we take something like a Chill Cube, or if we take a lower current AC unit that only pulls maybe 800 watts, then that means you'd be able to get upwards of 5 hours of air conditioned runtime off of a more efficient air conditioning system with a battery this size. That's pretty dang crazy. And that's the reason why something like this might be a great upgrade option for you and your RV. And what's really nice is the fact that a lot of RV A-frames up front can actually handle this larger box and fit this type of battery without having to do any modifications. But let me go ahead and take measurements for you just so you have an idea of if this will fit in your specific RV. Okay, so the width of the box is going to be 22 inches wide. It's going to be about 8 inches deep. And then with the lid is going to be right around 13 inches tall. And the battery is going to measure about 7¼ inches deep, 13½ inches wide, and right at 9¾ inches tall. So this is a good setup for a lot of RVs. And whenever you see me do RV reviews and I walk around the front A-frame section and I'm like, you could fit a couple batteries there, if I've made that comment, you can very likely fit this setup. But just be sure, more importantly, you have the width and you have the space to be able to fit the battery box. Because just because you can fit the battery doesn't mean that it will work with your RV. You also have to be able to have the box that's going to house it and protect it from the elements and from wandering eyes. Okay, so we have the battery on the workbench, and I want to go ahead and fill this thing up completely. I'm using my WFCO 9855AD, which is the auto detect WFCO or WFCO power converter. This basically is taking 110 coming in from the wall and converting it into 12 volts, or in this specific case, because this is auto detecting and I just checked it, it's putting out 14.52 volts or 14.6 volts for lithium iron phosphate. So it has automatically switched over to lithium chemistry for this specific application. If it were a lead acid battery, it would be charging it at 13.6 volts. So we're going to let this thing fill up completely. It's going to be really cool to check this thing out and actually see how it performs on an RV in the future, but that wasn't really the point of this video. I wanted to go over the specs, wanted to go over the fact that this is such a compact battery considering it's the equivalent of so many lead acid batteries, especially pumping out 320 amp hours of power. That is absolutely an insane amount of capacity for a battery this size, and that's going to be really beneficial for a lot of people who want to put one battery in that can really act as the equivalent of like, what, 7 other batteries, which is pretty dang awesome. Anyways, I will throw a link to this in the description of this video. Sure hope you enjoyed this video. If you haven't had a chance, please take a moment, subscribe to the channel, give me a thumbs up, and we'll talk to you again very soon.